there's a lot of disturbance in the voice of.
किसी की आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
हाँ वो.
हेलो.
जी.
Sir, इस वक्त कोई बोल नहीं रहा है. We are just going to start and then you will hear the voices. Right now, nobody is speaking.
Okay, I'm starting. Smita, you'll start first?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting.
A very good afternoon to everyone and welcome to the second episode of COVID-19 and Informal Workers series which we at ActionAid are hosting. This is our second episode. Yesterday we spoke about conditions and challenges of domestic workers post this pandemic. And today we are going to take over the cause of construction workers and bricklane workers and with a special focus on issues of women workers. Friends, our objective of this series is to come up with a set of recommendations which we would want the government to take up. So please actively participate in these series and contribute to us. We have an eminent panel of different civil society groups, trade union leaders, representatives from certain government boards, and as well as noted academicians with us today who will be sharing their inputs based upon their field experience and research analysis with us. I would like to share that we are partnering for this series with Democracy Dialogues, and along with me there is Dr. Zia-ul Haq is from Department of Sociology in Manu University, Hyderabad, and he is going to lay the context for today's webinar series. So welcome Zia to this webinar. Without taking much more time, in brief, I would like to share that Zia comes with a long experience of research and academic training on issues of minorities, specifically looking at challenges as well as their health challenges. And he, along with his friends SQ Masood and other noted activists, have formed this platform called Democracy Dialogue. And so we thank Democracy Dialogue for partnering with us in this effort and highlight the situation of informal workers, particularly the construction and bricklane workers for this series. So welcome Zia on board and request you to please share and lay the context of this webinar.
Thank you so much, Smita. It is indeed a pleasure to have such kind of program which carries a lot of meaning to the nation and the country as a whole. It was good to see that ActionAid India started a web series for 4 days, and one day Democracy Dialogue has collaborated with ActionAid, and that makes meaningful to the dialogue we have been carrying on Democracy Dialogue. Why we wanted to have this, have 2-3 points. One, that Democracy Dialogue is one of the vibrant forum where we have been taking people from various fields, not purely from one academics, but people who have been working in the area and create the debate, because the attention of the civil society has not been on the issues which is more crucial to any nation like our country. Second, that the kind of activities ActionAid is one of the established organizations, those who are aware of, and keeping the mandate of ActionAid and then kind of partnership ActionAid had, Democracy Dialogue wanted to collaborate and show that from the data, from the fieldwork understanding, and from the experiences of the people and the academia as a whole, will be able to deliver the crucial point of the contemporary society we have. And there has been national or pan-India debate on the issues of brick kiln workers, for example, what we are going to talk today. This webinar was thirdly important because a lot of youth and then energy of the youth have not been utilized in a constructive manner. Democracy Dialogue had overseas participations in its all past program, and the question were that, are you also going to talk about informal labor? Are you also going to talk about the labor who are, people who are rickshaw pullers, people who are street vendors, people who are hawkers, or as a whole, the unorganized workforce. So in its effort, like Government of India in January was trying to announce, or it announced that there is going to be a study on informal labors, and there were high expectations that we are going to have good data to study the situations. But since March onward, the country is in a different situation where you wanted to have, very importantly, a data study which could give path which could give vision to the policy of the Government of India or different states of the country. And every state is facing a crisis of informal labor's movement and migration, which was conceived as, we'll be listening to the experts just now. Migration was considered to be one indicator of any developing country, that the highest or percentage of migration would bring a lot of development, but it brings a lot of insights to study. And from the point of sociological or economic point of view, a society has to face various kinds of challenges when the kind of migration we face. So the significance of today's talk was that it is a collaborative work, and collaborative work in the sense that we are going to have panel discussion of eminent individuals in their own field. I am personally very thankful to two professors in academia who are based in Hyderabad. Professor Amirullah Khan Sahab, who has been very dynamic, very vocal, and on the basis of statistics and data, what we have been reading his writings in the past, we are going to learn a lot from Professor Amirullah Khan Sahab. And Professor Revati, who is heading the Center for Economic CES, is one of the established institute at Hyderabad. She will be talking on breaking work, as Smita just briefed. So I am thankful to ActionAid entire team on behalf of Democracy Dialogue. I'm also happy to inform that Democracy Dialogue is one of the very dynamic forum where we have been inviting people from various corners. A small team of individuals here who are established here: Mr. S.Q. Masood, Laik Ahmed Khan, Furqan, Shakir, and Basu. These are the people who have been voluntarily working in the name of Democracy Dialogue. And the first inaugural talk, when we started, was delivered by Professor Kancha Ilaya to set the text of or context of democracy. And then the entire question of countries' youth today is that whether we are living in a democracy, which kind of democracy, and are we having a different model of democracy, or we are going to set a different model of democracy. So that we had a couple of discussion in the name of contextualizing democracy itself in the frame of Constitution of India. And those were the thought which brought us to start debating. And recently, when we had a talk with the youth and Professor Sangmitra Acharya delivered, we had more than 500 participants joining the talk. So that shows that people are interested to participate, discuss about the issue. The issue is only that we are not having a serious, very concerned platform where even a limited number of individuals can come and share their views. So today becomes a very fortunate day where we have varieties of people from various corners of the country with their own expertise. And when we are going to listen Professor Amirullah Khan, economist, and who will be giving the a larger perspective of locating informal labor and then crisis we are facing in the context of national economy, we are definitely going to contribute to the society, contribute to the nation in the nation building process. And that makes very meaningful for today's webinar. So I again welcome everyone here. I'm also thankful to all four panelists who have given their precious time on behalf of Democracy Dialogue and ActionAid India. I'm thankful to country head of the ActionAid India, who is giving free hand to his staffs to have collaborations all across the country. And lastly, I'm also thankful to my colleagues with Democracy Dialogue who are going to be very fruitful in creating these kind of debates, because all of them have been working in the grassroots, at the field, the student movement, and then some of them are busy with creating a lot of sense of civil society, consciousness in the society. So these kind of involvements are going to bring a very fruitful debate today. Thank you, Smita, and your entire team from ActionAid India for making this event very successful with the kind of support you have. And then, friends, I also invite many of you who are unable to join. They can also refer this live talk on Facebook, so a larger audience can benefit from this talk. Thank you, everyone here, and I look forward for listening your talk. Over to Smita.
Thank you so much, Zia, for laying out the broader context. And with this, I would like to welcome Professor Amirullah Khanji for this webinar. Welcome, Amir. Friends, Amir is a very noted development economist, and we all know about his credentials, but nevertheless, let me just lay out. He's currently the professor with NCR HRDI with the government of Telangana. He's been a visiting professor with ISB and NALSA. He's been the chief strategist with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and is a very noted voice out there in the world of development economics. So welcome to you, Professor Amir, and we look forward to hear from you now. Over to you.
Thanks, Smita. Thanks, Zia. It is such an honor for me to be associated with both Democracy Now! And with ActionAid. I have known Zia very closely for quite a while now, and I'm extremely impressed with the kind of sensitivity he brings to issues of national importance, which he highlighted in his introductory remarks. And therefore, I'm delighted whenever he asks me to join him in anything that he does. ActionAid is something I've been associated with in various ways for decades now. Have been following all the enormous amount of work that all of you have been doing against all odds, and therefore absolutely honored to be part of this panel. I've worked with CES, and I hope I can convey my gratitude to Revati and her colleagues for all the work that they have done, particularly in Andhra and Telangana. We have benefited from being associated with them in various ways. For today's conversation, I thought I will just make 3 broad points. And that is what I have on my plate for all of you to comment on. I am just using the data that is coming out, that is available to us right now, to point out that from among everything that we see today, the 3 issues that are distinctly important for us whenever we make any comment or have any discussion on displaced workers, on the unorganized labor force, or on the poor. Those 3 points, one by one, and I'll just go through the 3 of them to give you why I think they are important. The first and the most important issue that we must highlight today is the issue of poverty. Why? Because the immediate economic impact of the infection of the disease has been in making people impoverished. Second reason, because we have all been discussing the SDGs, this directly impacts SDG 1 and sets us back considerably because of what has happened in impacting poverty levels. So what is it that I'm saying on poverty? We've had a good record over the last 20 years. We've been able to bring out nearly 200 million people out of poverty, and the numbers of the poor have shrunk like never before. We still have at least 150 million very poor people, but that number unfortunately seems to have gone up, or definitely has gone up, because of the roughly 50 million people who have been pushed back into poverty. So that is point number one, that we have a large group of people who are poor afresh, who have been pushed back into poverty. And therefore, that kind of impoverishment is something that is really miserable. And in terms of the economy, in terms of policy, it pushes back our commitment and our destination as far as SDG number 1 is concerned by a large measure. What should we do about it, etc.? We'll just come to in a bit. But that's point number 1. Point number 2 and SDG number 2 is the issue of hunger. You see, I was just writing about this today in the Telangana Today newspaper, and while reading this issue up, it struck me as to how critically this issue of hunger has impacted a large number of the poor. We know, by now we know that our hunger index is pretty awful. The Global Hunger Index already pointed out even last year that India's hungry, the number of India's hungry is formidable. We have about 130 million people who sleep hungry every day. And that figure has gone up in the last 3 years. From about 90 million, we've added about 40 million people to those who sleep hungry. So we were already on the back foot as far as hunger was concerned, even last year, as the economy kept going downhill in 2018 and 17, 18 and 19, the number of people who were hungry kept going up significantly. As if that was not enough, the last 4 months has wreaked havoc. And we have any number of studies now that are showing that nearly half the people are eating less than what they were eating last year. So the impact on those who are hungry is pretty significant. And it is something that is an immediate problem. Associated with this issue of hunger is the issue of gender. And therefore, the other SDGs that follow. Hunger disproportionately impacts women. That is nothing that you don't know about, but what I'm focusing on is the fact that it disproportionately impacts pregnant women. At any point in time, we have roughly 20 million pregnant women in the country. And if we are to take a very understated figure of 10 million who are poor, then we are seeing 10 million pregnant women go hungry. To this group, I need not emphasize the tragedy that impacts a population when its pregnant mothers go hungry. The nutritional imprint stays on forever. The example that we in nutrition studies often talk about is the Dutch crisis, the Dutch famine, which lasted only for a few months, but the nutrition imprint on the children that were born after the war lasted for an entire generation. So you can imagine the havoc it is causing to the 10-12 million pregnant women and at least the 10-12 million children who are yet to be born. That's the second point on hunger. The third point, and that is in the context of the topic today of construction and brick kiln workers. Mind you, the first 2 points impact them directly. It is the construction and brick kiln workers who have got impoverished. It is the construction and brick kiln workers that are going hungry. But what is most important, and that's the third point I make, is the growth in unemployment. The unemployment figures, again, were pretty bad even in December 2019. We were looking at unprecedented unemployment levels of nearly 7 to 8%. But that just jumped in April to about 32%. So we've had just large scale unemployment. The figures say it all. We were talking about 120 million who have lost their jobs in March. We're talking about 150 million who have lost their job by April. So therefore, there is an enormous amount of unemployment that we have seen. The construction and brick kiln workers who are already getting unemployed when construction activity stopped or stalled in post demonetization have been even hit even bigger time by the fact that unemployment just zoomed after the crisis, after the pandemic crisis hit us. So we are looking at about 200 million people who are unemployed right now. So 139 million people that you saw in yesterday's newspapers using the NSS's data that shows that about 139 million people in urban areas have exhausted all their savings by now. That this month, early June, 139 million people do not have any savings left for any essential consumption. So we have a huge crisis on hand. And that crisis on hand, because of increased impoverishment, increased hunger, and increased unemployment, is going to be a crisis that we are going to tackle for a long time to come. The earlier estimates that we are going to hit a peak in June, July has now been pushed forward by the ICMR itself in a report that it denied. It has admitted that the peak is now going to hit us mid-November. So it is clear that this year is a washout, that we are not going to have any let up in our chaos in 2020, which means that these unorganized workers, particularly in the construction sector, are going to need enormous support for at least another 4 quarters. Unfortunately, neither the government in the center nor the governments in the state have taken cognizance of this issue. We are pushing an economic stimulus that is predicated upon loans. You see, loans are a medium-term or a long-term solution. Hunger is an immediate problem. And I'm quoting Raghuram Rajan here, that hunger is an immediate problem. And therefore, we need to feed our poor right away. And therefore, the solution that I offer, that I have been writing about, and several of us have been speaking on this issue, several of you have been part of this, where we are saying that, look, immediately, we have to take care of our workers by ensuring that the state provides food for them, 3 meals a day. It is not a big deal. All these migrant workers, these workers who we have left completely to fend for themselves, what we should be doing is taking them into our empty institutions. All our schools are closed. Let's house them there. That's what Thailand did. That's what Indonesia did. Let's take them. That's what some cities in Rajasthan have done. Let's take them there, house them in schools. Our schools have decent buildings. At least in the city, the schools have water, they have toilets. That is where you can easily quarantine the poor. So take them there. We have apparatus that takes midday meal schemes to schools in any case. So there are kitchens. The distribution system is in place. The supply stream is in place. Let's feed them thrice a day for the next 6 months. My rough calculation is that it will cost between 60 to 70 crores for Hyderabad city to do it. Hyderabad city, if it spends 70 crores a month for the next 6 months, it's not going to be a big expenditure. 400, 500 crores. That is apparently what we earned through opening liquor sales for a week. So if we can do that, then we would have taken care of this really miserable, really vulnerable proportion of our population, and it won't be forced to come back and work when it does not want to, when the infection is hitting its peak. Mind you, the next 4 weeks are very critical. If we are going to push our workers to come back and work in unhealthy, dirty, unsanitized environments and catch the infection and have no quarantine facilities for them, then we are staring at a huge disaster. It's a simple solution. It just requires all of us to be compassionate and have a bigger heart than we have shown in the last 3 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Amir. I think you ended at the right note. Perhaps we need to have a bigger heart to those who have built our houses and right now are rendered homeless, and we have kind of left them to fend for themselves. It's a tragedy which is beyond comprehension of what we saw the migrant workers when they were traveling, and they still continue to be in the same situation. With this, would like to welcome Professor Revati on board. Professor Revati is the director with the Center for Economic and Social Studies, Hyderabad. Telangana, her areas of interest have been around development issues, agricultural, regional inequalities. So Professor Revati is also going to shed some more specifics on the issues of construction and bricklayer workers, specifically focusing on construction workers and women construction workers. So over to you, Professor Revati.
Thank you, Smita, and I thank ActionAid for having me on board in this very interesting and important panel. And yes, Irfan, I also thank Irfan. He is our student, PhD student working on construction labor. And that's how I think he has put me here. I think, yes, the topic is very important, and it's interesting for us, all of us, to participate here. I would like to highlight on the informal sector and some data about the informal sector and the gendered issues on informal sector, the working and living conditions for women construction workers, and also what are the challenges and a little bit what can be the way forward to this. I think we all know that informal sector is characterized by, it's also the flexible employment, which I think now the governments also are taking it as an opportunity to push towards this kind of flexible employment, where the job contract, paid leave, social security benefits are not there. And then I think now we have also seen some of these governments, state governments like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, also repealing with this Factories Act, removing the exemption limit to that of 20 with power and 40 without power, so that the regulatory provisions are more manufacturing is exempted from kind of regulatory provisions. So that's how I think they want to also take the opportunity to invite some kind of private investment or foreign investment, offering that our labor is flexible, and then you can hire and fire, and then so therefore invite private investment. And when we look at the recent employment and unemployment survey, the data that is there, most of these the data shows that in informal sector is in rural areas, and also the non-agriculture that is agriculture with where there is exempting the crop production. So this kind of sector has been growing. That is the bulk of the informal sector that has been there. I think in economic theory, we say that this is the residual sector, informal sector is the residual sector. But if we look at, and that there will be movement of labor from the formal to the, from agriculture to the non-farm sector. But that kind of thing hasn't happened in our economy if we look at even in normal times, also the transition of the economy that is there. So most of the developing countries have developed or have come up with this kind of informal sector, which has grown in proportion, where it offers very kind of employment which is not sticking to the kind of characters that are there, that is fair wages or decent work and all these. And the jobs that are created in this informal sector are increasing very much. And overwhelming of this non-agriculture employment, which is part of the informal sector, and where the dominant share of this informal sector are occupied by manufacturing, construction, and trade. And we know that the data also shows that I think they accounted that manufacturing accounted for 76% and construction and trade accounted for 68% of all workers in non-agriculture informal sector and in the rural and urban areas. So basically the point is that the informal sector has been growing and it's on the rise, and where more job creation has been in the informal sector. And even before the pandemic, the health pandemic of COVID-19 is there, it had all its kind of informality, where workers are workers, and especially the kind of certain segments of the workers, like women workers working in certain kind of segments, are vulnerable. And even now, after the COVID-19 pandemic, they are even more vulnerable, as Professor Amir has also pointed out, that the push towards because of the lockdown of the economy, there is no kind of work that is there, and all this. So the vulnerability of these segments has increased. Now, I think we have all these figures where Professor Amir also was saying that unemployment has increased, and there's an adverse impact from loss of income, layoff, reduction in working hours. That is basically, it's a slippage into poverty, and there are innumerable kind of livelihood challenges that have come up, especially to the workers who are working in these kind of segments that's there. And actually, we have also done something like, in the context of the Telangana state itself, what has been the impact of lockdown on various sectors in the initial period of lockdown, where there was complete lockdown or partial lockdown, the different sectors that are there, and what loss has been to the economy. So because of the closure of the or complete lockdown of the construction sector itself, the state was losing 97 crore rupees per day. That's the kind of loss that it has been facing. Now, if we look at the construction industry in the informal segment, actually it has been growing at a fast pace in recent times, especially after globalization kind of thing, where I think 9% rate is there to the growth of construction sector. And employment in construction sector also has been growing at almost 9.3% annual rate. But a rise in construction sector in workforce is faster than its contribution to GDP. So it also contributed to GDP to the extent of 7 to 8%. And its share in employment crossed actually 6% between 9 and 10, 2009 and 10. If you look at over a period of time, 2009 and 10, its share in employment crossed 6% and GDP at 8%. So that is the importance of construction segment as such. Now, how is it that where is it concentrated more, rural or urban? In the till 2011-12, I think, the first decade of the more active reform period, if you look at that, it was more of a rural share in construction employment was high. Studies have shown this, that it was at 70%, but in the last decade, it has moved more to urban areas, where we find that urban share has been increasing. And the construction sector also is like, it's now big companies that are there, corporate companies have entered into this construction sector. And then we have the medium level companies that are there. And also we have the daily kind of labor working from the labor addas or labor daily wage, labor joints that are there. So when these big companies have also come into this construction activity, or what kind of labor conditions are there, working conditions are there for the labor at their kind of construction sites, is an interesting kind of issue that's there. And if you look at the construction labor as such, I think roughly around 40 million construction labor, if it's there, and 20% of them are women. And these women are working in mostly in the kind of casual labor or daily wage kind of works. And even where there are in the big construction companies also, they are resident in the workplace itself, and there is a kind of migrant labor force is also there working in these construction sites. Now, some of these stylized facts of these women labor are very well known to all of us, where women labor are mostly the age group of the women, mostly are like 36 to 50, bulk of the women labor constitute that age group. And also, but one good thing is that in recent times, the younger age group are coming out of the work, and then maybe they have, if we look at the studies on declining female labor participation in labor market, we also find that they are more into the education, but not work. But however, there are 15 to 20% still are in working. And the social category of women who are participating in this construction labor and all, we see that mostly it's the vulnerable social categories, that is the SCs and BCs. And the average wage of the women construction workers is less. And also they are mostly fall into the unskilled category of workers, and where they face uncertain wages, social security is absent, and then they have very minimum or low kind of opportunities to upgrade their skill, and then they face numerous health hazards due to occupational health hazards are there, workplace safety is absent. So these are more. And then if you look at the local and migrant construction workers, I think it's even more pitiable conditions in the case of the migrant workers. And I think in normal times itself, these are the working conditions. And we know that a pandemic kind of situation where there's a close down of entire activity, I think they are the ones who are hit hard, and then they without any work and without any wages, and it's a very kind of a difficult kind of situation that is there. And within the industry itself, we find very few women at the top level management or in the technical jobs. So it's almost all at the bulk. The pyramid is that they are more concentrated at the lower end that is there. And so then what are the institutions that are there for their welfare, and how do they function, or how did they function for in times of such kind of pandemic? Because such a big health issue, kind of shock that is there, and what kind of welfare measures did they face? Then we have this Building and Other Construction Workers Act and the board that is there, but the registration of women workers is, I think it is lower. And in the context of, we were looking at how many workers have been registered in this under this Building and Other Construction Workers Act in the state of Telangana. And I think found it's roughly around 13 lakh workers who have registered, and the cess that is collected from the companies that is there, and it is not entirely utilized for the welfare activities of the welfare of the labor. And I think at that point, the government of India has requested the different states to distribute these cess funds to the workers, also to the registered. But the point here is that the registered workers, women are often do not are not in the registered workers. And
thank you, Professor Revati. I'm afraid we are running out of time.
Yeah, I'll just take a...
So I think you have beautifully laid out the contours of the situation of women workers on the ground. And I am interrupting at this moment, and we'll come back to you with the specific questions which are, attendees of this webinar today have been kind of raising. Please continue to be with us to address those questions which are specifically directed on the subject. Because you mentioned about situation on the ground and how they have been pending, and with us we have Sandeep Khare ji, who is based in Uttar Pradesh, and he's been a social activist and is a secretary with the Vigyan Foundation. So we'd like to welcome you, Sandeep ji, to this webinar. And Sandeep ji, friends, has been actively working for the rights of construction workers for several decades. He has been very active in the space for urban homeless people. And most of these construction workers, we know the kind of worksite facilities Professor Revati was mentioning and how the situation of women is there. So, Sandeep ji, just like the way Professor Revati has pointed out that roughly 20 to 30% women are in construction work. So, you have been actively involved on the ground in relief work. आपके क्या reflections हैं on this whole challenge which you see for construction workers on the ground? We'd like you to reflect on it. We have 10 minutes with us for this. Thank you.
थैंक यू स्मिता, थैंक यू एक्शनेड कि आपने बात रखने का मौका दिया। उत्तर प्रदेश के संदर्भ में अगर हम देखें तो उत्तर प्रदेश में जो दिहाड़ कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर हैं और उसमें लगभग 30 से 35% के आसपास महिलाएं हैं जो काम करती हैं। और उनके संदर्भ में अगर हम ग्राउंड लेवल पे देखें तो हम पाएंगे कि जैसे ही लॉकडाउन स्टार्ट हुआ उसमें सबसे पहली जो परेशानी उपलब्ध हुई वो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर या दिहाड़ी मजदूरों के ऊपर आई, क्योंकि हम लोग 2 शेल्टर होम भी चलाते हैं जहां पर तमाम सारे कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर साथी रहते हैं। हालांकि महिला कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर वहां पे नहीं आती हैं, लेकिन ये समझ में आया कि 23-24 तारीख को जब पहली बार लॉकडाउन हुआ तो ज्यादातर कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर जो आसपास के जिलों के थे वो वापस हो गए और जो बाहर के जिलों में थे वो सेकेंड थर्ड लॉकडाउन में बाहर जाने लगे। तो एक तो ग्राउंड लेवल पे स्थिति ये रही कि जब उनके काम बंद हुए तो सबसे पहले उनकी दैनिक जीवन की जो दिक्कतें थी वो उनके सामने शुरू हो गई, खास करके जब वो उनकी राशन की जो दिक्कतें थी, रोजमर्रा के जीवन के जो खर्चे थे वो। हालांकि उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार ने करीब उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार में हम देखें तो टोटल 51 लाख के आसपास मजदूर पंजीकृत रहे पिछले 3 सालों में 4 सालों में, जिनमें करीब 17.5 लाख 14.5 लाख के आसपास उत्तर प्रदेश लोग थे, पंजीकृत मजदूर थे, जिनमें उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार ने जिनको जो घोषणा की थी बीओसी बोर्ड के तहत कि 1000 रुपए उनको नियमित तौर पे प्रतिमाह दिया जाएगा, जिनमें उनको 1000 रुपए 13.5 लाख को पहली बार में और दूसरी बार में भी अभी सेकेंड किस्त उनकी जा चुकी है। उनमें 30 से 35% अराउंड 35% से के आसपास महिलाएं हैं जिनको ये पैसे गए हैं नगद तौर पे। दूसरा एक बड़ी घोषणा हुई कि जो लोग भी बीओसी बोर्ड में हैं, पंजीकृत लोग हैं, उनमें वो लोग अपने राशन, अगर वो लोग राशन कार्ड नजदीकी राशन कार्ड की दुकान से सामान लेते हैं और उनके पास कहीं का राशन कार्ड भी है तो उनको मुफ्त राशन उपलब्ध कराया जाएगा। तो ये 2 चीजें उत्तर प्रदेश में हुई, लेकिन इसके बावजूद ग्राउंड लेवल पे अगर हम देखें तो तमाम सारे ऐसे लोग थे, मजदूर साथी थे जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर में थे, वो ग्राउंड लेवल पे पंजीकृत ही नहीं थे या पंजीकृत थे तो उनके रिन्यूअल नहीं हुए थे। तो इस तरह की दिक्कतें बहुत बड़े स्तर पर थी, तो जिसकी वजह से एक समस्या ये हुई कि ज्यादातर लोग वंचित रह गए कैश ट्रांसफर में या राशन कार्ड की दुकानों से सामान लेने में। इसमें एक व्यवहारिक दिक्कत भी हुई, जहां पे क्योंकि उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार ने ये घोषणा की थी कि जिनके पास राशन कार्ड और बीओसी का कार्ड दोनों है उन्हें ही फ्री राशन दिया जाएगा। तो कई बार ये समस्या हुई कि जिसके पास बीओसी का कार्ड था उसके पास राशन कार्ड नहीं था और जिनके पास राशन कार्ड थे उनके पास बीओसी बोर्ड में पंजीकरण का कार्ड नहीं था। तो ये एक व्यवहारिक दिक्कत थी और उसके कारण बहुत सारे लोग राशन की जो उपलब्धता सरकार के द्वारा कराई गई थी उस पर नहीं कर पाए। एक और चीज खास करके कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर के साथ घरेलू कामगारों के संदर्भ में भी मैं अपनी बात रखूंगा, और वो ये थी कि जब घरेलू कामगारों का काम, क्योंकि विज्ञान फाउंडेशन उत्तर प्रदेश में घरेलू कामगारों के साथ भी बहुत सारा काम हम लोग करते हैं और उसमें घरेलू का जैसे ही लॉकडाउन शुरू हुआ तो जो भी जहां भी काम करने के लिए घरेलू कामगार साथी जाती थी वहां पर काम उनका तुरंत बंद करा दिया गया कि जिस तरीके से डर का पूरा माहौल बना और अचानक लॉकडाउन हुआ उसमें मध्यवर्गीय समाज के जो लोग थे उनको लगा कि शायद जो लोग उनके घर में काम करने आ रहे हैं सबसे ज्यादा कोरोना की जो बीमारी है उनसे फैलेगी, तो उन्होंने इमीडिएट बंद कराया और उसके बाद तमाम जगहों पे RWS ने ये कहा कि कोई भी डोमेस्टिक वर्कर हमारे प्रेमाइसेस में एंट्री नहीं लेगी। और सेकेंड थर्ड लॉकडाउन आने के बाद कुछ जगहों पे 10 से 15% घरेलू कामगारों को काम करने के लिए परमिशन मिली तमाम सारी शर्तों के साथ, जिनमें कुछ शर्तें ऐसी थी कि वो लिफ्ट इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगी, फला चीज नहीं करेंगी, शायद एम्प्लॉयर उनके लिए लिख के देगा, ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें, जिसका उसके कारण एक बड़ी दिक्कत ये हुई कि ज्यादातर घरेलू कामगारों के हाथ से काम छूट गया, और उसमें खासकर उन महिलाओं के साथ, उन महिलाओं को ज्यादा दिक्कत हुई, उन साथियों को ज्यादा दिक्कत हुई जो लोग खाना बनाने के पेशे से जुड़े हुए थे। तो ज्यादातर जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर में महिलाएं थी और घरेलू कामगार महिलाएं थी, उनके हाथ में थोड़ी बहुत जॉब की अपॉर्चुनिटी थी, पैसे उनके हाथ में आ रहे थे, वो उनके हाथ में नहीं रह गए, और उससे उनकी बहुत दिक्कत है। दूसरा एक जो बड़ी समस्या क्रिएट हुई, जो हम लोग ग्राउंड लेवल पे देख पा रहे हैं, कि ये लॉकडाउन के चलते जो उनके हाथ से काम छूटे और उनके सामने संकट हो, उसमें हिंसा बड़े पैमाने पे बढ़ी। क्योंकि जब वो पूरे टाइम घर के अंदर थी, तो घर के अंदर रुक रही थी, तो घर के जो काम के दबाव थे, पुरुषों के साथ जो पुरुषों के अपने जो व्यवहारगत परिवर्तन हुए उस दौरान, जो घर में रहने के कारण, उसकी वजह से उसका महिला जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर से जुड़ी महिला थी, घरेलू कामगार महिला साथी थी, उनके साथ हिंसा बड़े पैमाने पे बढ़ी है। और उसका प्रभाव उनके साथ बाकी जगहों पे हम लोग देख पा रहे थे, और तमाम सारी छोटी छोटी छुटपुट मारपीट से लेके था पुलिस में रिपोर्ट, और ये सब हम लोगों को दिखाई दिया ग्राउंड लेवल पे। और इसमें जो तत्कालिक तौर पे जो इस तरह का पूरा माहौल था, उसमें डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के तरफ से बहुत सारी मदद भी उनको नहीं मिल पाई, और जिसकी वजह से वो क्योंकि पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन साथ कोरोना के साथ जो पूरा माहौल था उससे जूझ रहा था। तो ये एक ग्राउंड लेवल पे ज्यादा स्थितियां खराब हुई। एक और दिक्कत हुई, क्योंकि जो उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर में छत्तीसगढ़, बिलासपुर, झारखंड और बिहार के बहुत सारे साथी थे, और वो साथी जब पारिवारिक तौर पे पूरे परिवार के साथ अपने मूल निवास की ओर वापस चल गए, तो रास्ते में जो उनकी तमाम सारी दिक्कतें थी वो उनके सामने रहीं, और उनको उसके कारण उनकी चुनौतियां बढ़ती गई। हालांकि विज्ञान फाउंडेशन एक्शनएड के साथ मिलके और लखनऊ में एक पूरा सपोर्ट ग्रुप कोविड-19 लखनऊ बनाया हम लोगों ने। करीब 200 के करीब साथी थे, संस्थाएं थी, इंडिविजुअल थे, एकेडमिशियन थे, जिन्होंने लगभग 5 लाख लोगों तक और 50,000 परिवारों तक और लगभग 50,000 के आसपास प्रवासी मजदूरों तक अपना समर्थन राशन के माध्यम से, दवाइयों के माध्यम से, कपड़ों के माध्यम से, चप्पलें, जो भी उनकी तत्कालिक जरूरतें थी उसके माध्यम से हम लोगों ने पहुंचने की कोशिश की। इसके अलावा करीब 10,000 सैनिटरी नैपकिन, जो खास करके विशेष तौर पर घरेलू कामगार साथी और जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर की से जुड़ी हुई महिला साथी थे, उनके बीच में हम लोग उस दौरान गए कि कम से कम व्यक्तिगत स्वच्छता और सफाई के सवाल को उनके साथ चर्चा किया जा पाए, बातचीत की जा पाए, और उनको मुफ्त वितरित करने का काम किया गया। लखनऊ और लखनऊ के साथ साथ इलाहाबाद में भी इसी तरह का एक ग्रुप बनाया हमारे साथियों ने। हमारे साथी वहाँ पे अंशु मालवी और अनुराधा और उत्पला जी हैं, जिन्होंने इलाहाबाद हेल्प ग्रुप बनाया। इसी तरह बनारस के अंदर भी एक्शनएड और एक्शनएड के साथ दूसरे तमाम सारे साथियों ने। तो उत्तर प्रदेश में लगभग सभी जगह पे हम लोगों ने कोशिश की कि जो असंगठित क्षेत्र से जुड़ी हुई न सिर्फ कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर और घरेलू कामगार, बल्कि असंगठित क्षेत्र से जो भी जुड़ी हुई महिला साथी हैं, उनके जीवन में जो भी चुनौतियां उस समय थी, उसके तत्कालिक निदान जो हम लोग सोच पा रहे थे, उसके लिए हम लोगों ने प्लान किया और उसके लिए कोशिश की कि सपोर्ट ग्रुप्स अलग अलग जगहों पर उनको मदद कर पाए। और आज की तारीख में दोबारा जब हम देखें तो उनके सामने भविष्य की जो चुनौतियां हैं, क्योंकि उनको 3 महीने के लिए राज्य सरकार की तरफ से सहायता दी जा रही थी, 1,000 रुपए प्रति माह। तो वो सहायता अभी ये आखिरी महीना होगा, 2 किस्त जा चुकी हैं, तीसरी किस्त उनको जानी चाहिए। तो लेकिन उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर ज्यादातर जगहों पे कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम अभी स्टार्ट नहीं हुआ है। लेबर अड्डों पे शायद जहाँ पे 300 से 400 लोग खड़े होते थे, वहाँ आज 10% लोग लेबर अड्डे पे हैं, लगभग 30 से 40 लोग हैं, और उनमें भी ज्यादातर पुरुष साथी हैं। तो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर अभी भी पूरी तरह से जो काम उनको मिलना चाहिए था वो रोजगार उनके हाथ में नहीं है, और घरेलू कामगार साथियों के हाथ में भी अभी भी खास करके खाना बनाने वाली जो महिला साथी हैं, उनके हाथ में रोजगार नहीं है। तो हमको आने वाले दिनों में ये भी समझना होगा कि पूरा ये कोरोना के चलते जो लोग जॉब लॉसेस कर रहे हैं और सामाजिक सुरक्षा का जो बेहतर लिंकेजेज होना चाहिए था वो नहीं है। उत्तर प्रदेश में हालांकि प्रवासी और श्रमिक आयोग का गठन हुआ है, लेकिन ये प्रवासी और श्रमिक आयोग जो है, जहां तक मैं समझ पा रहा हूँ, उन लोगों के लिए काम करेगा जो दूसरे राज्यों से आए हैं या अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर जो थे और उत्तर प्रदेश में आए। उत्तर प्रदेश में लगभग 35 लाख लोग आए हैं, जिनमें करीब 11.5 लाख लोग माना जा रहा है कि सेमी स्किल्ड या स्किल्ड लोग हैं, और उनमें 3.5 से 4 लाख लोग स्किल्ड हैं, और उनमें बहुत छोटा प्रतिशत ही महिलाओं का है, बहुत बड़े पैमाने पे महिला साथी नहीं है। कि जो स्किल और सेमी स्किल की कैटेगरी में आए, तो हम ये भी समझ पा रहे हैं कि उत्तर प्रदेश जैसे राज्य में ज्यादातर जो जॉब जो महिला साथी हैं जो इसी तरीके के असंगठित क्षेत्र के कामकाज के कार्यों से जुड़ी हैं, पेशागत समुदायों से पेशागत उससे जुड़ी हुई हैं, वो ज्यादातर अनस्किल्ड है। तो एक हमारे लिए एक चुनौती है कि कोविड-19 के बाद हम ऐसे कौन से तरीके सोच सकते हैं जिनमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा महिला साथी अपने जो इंडिपेंडेंसी है उसको प्राप्त करने के लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज स्किल हो पाए, और कौन से ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूशन है जहां पे उनका कन्वर्जेंस हो पाए। क्योंकि जो ट्रेडिशनली जिस तरह के हम चीजें सोच रहे थे पहले, वो शायद आज कोविड-19 के बाद उपलब्ध संभव नहीं है। क्योंकि अगर हम लेबर अड्डे पे सोचते थे कि महिलाएं खड़ी होकर जैसे पहले जब आप रोजगार की तलाश करती थी, क्या आज उसी तरह से, क्योंकि अभी भी आपदा राहत कानून लागू है और भीड़ के तौर पे हम लेबर अड्डों पर नहीं खड़े हो पा रहे हैं मजदूर साथी, तो उनके लिए कैसे कुछ नया प्लान कर सकते हैं जिससे ज्यादा से ज्यादा महिला साथी जो श्रमिक थी या अपने, क्योंकि छत्तीसगढ़ और बिलासपुर के जितने भी साथी वो यहाँ जोड़े में काम करते हैं कि पुरुष साथी और महिला साथी एक साथ काम करते हैं, तो कई बार वो जोड़े में काम करने के कारण दोनों ही साथी घर पर बैठे हैं, तो उसमें कैसे कुछ बदलाव हो पाए, कैसे कुछ नए तरीके सोच पाए, वो एक उत्तर प्रदेश के स्तर पे हम लोग देख पा रहे हैं और समझ पा रहे हैं। तो
थैंक यू संदीप जी। समय की सीमा है तो हम आपके पास दोबारा आएंगे। So friends, Sandeep ji has very elaborately shared about the condition of construction workers on the ground. He specifically reiterates what Professor Amir and Revati have pointed out in terms of data available to us on construction workers, especially women construction workers. A, there is a challenge of data out there. B, what he highlights clearly is the fact that these women workers will be perhaps the last one to gain employment if and when the situation will get normalized on the ground. He talks statistically about the state of Uttar Pradesh, where roughly around 35 lakh workers have returned back, and most of them are have some kind of semi-skill. This state also offers 1,000 rupees to all the workers who are into construction industry, but that relief of 1,000 is only for a period of 3 months, and this is the third month of that relief. He talks about labor addas, the places from which construction workers get their work, where only roughly around 10% of them are able to stand and seek employment. Given the situation, perhaps he feels that the women workers will be last in the queue to gain work. He also talks about domestic workers who are also not getting enough opportunities there in Uttar Pradesh. Sandeep ji has also shared that part of it which is impacted, but also the very fact that these are women and are facing violence inside their homes. So this is another dimension perhaps which we also need to look at, how patriarchy is operating in this situation of pandemic, where at one place their livelihood is also getting lost, and at the second place women from these communities are even pushed further behind the walls. With this, I will like to welcome Gagandeep ji with us. Gagan, can you please unmute yourself? Yeah. So, friends, Gagan works with Volunteers of Social Justice. She's based in Punjab. She comes with her experience of law and rescue of bonded laborers in large numbers. She's been very, very active on the scene when it comes to women who are into domestic work, specifically from the Dalit community in Punjab. She's been very active on the forefront of sexual harassment. She's part of the POSH committee at Police Academy. She's also the chairperson with women chairperson with Intec there in Punjab. So over to you, Gagan, and it would be good कि अगर आप बात कर सके कि पंजाब में क्या स्थिति है महिलाओं की specifically, और bricklain industry में क्या देखने को मिल रहा है, because bricklain industry was one industry which was said to be functional even during the lockdown phase. There were some reports around that. So what exactly is happening there? There are some conflicting reports which are being reported in Delhi that Punjab is asking, is ready to pay double the wages to bring the workers back. Is it true? Is it not true? And where are women in this?
जी जी, थैंक यू स्मिता जी। पहले तो मैं थैंक्स करना चाहूंगी कि एक्शन एड का, जिन्होंने ब्रिकलेन स्पेशली जो वीमेन वर्कर्स हैं उनके साथ में बात को रखा है। तो जो पंजाब में सिचुएशन है ब्रिक किलन का, 40% जो महिलाएं हैं ब्रिक किलन में, अगर 100% वर्कर हैं उसमें से 40% महिलाएं हैं वो ब्रिक किलन सेक्टर में काम करती हैं। और यहाँ पे 6-7 सेक्टर होते हैं, स्पेशली 2 सेक्टर में ये महिलाएं काम करती हैं। एक पथेरा जहाँ पे ब्रिक मोल्ड होते हैं, और दूसरा निकासी जहाँ से ईंट को बाहर भट्ठे से आग से निकाला जाता है। तो ये 2 सेक्टर है यहाँ जहाँ पर ये महिलाएं काम करती हैं। महिलाओं का भट्ठे पे काम करना, वो भी एक मजदूर हैं, लेकिन उनके भट्ठा मजदूरों के कभी भी जो महिलाएं हैं उनका कहीं भी रिकॉर्ड में नाम नहीं रहता, क्योंकि भट्ठा मालिक जो है उनको, वो जो भट्ठा है यहाँ पे पंजाब में वो फैक्ट्री एक्ट के अंडर में आता है, तो उनको कई मेंटेन करने रहते हैं, लेकिन कभी भी उसमें जो भट्ठा मजदूर औरत है उसका कभी भी उसमें अटेंडेंस नहीं लगता है और कभी भी उसको वेज नहीं मिलती है। ये जो वेज है वो हमेशा जो है मेल मेंबर को दी जाती है, और मेल मेंबर जो है वही पैसे का लेन देन जो भी है, भले वो महिला की मजदूरी है लेकिन वो महिला को नहीं मिलती, वो मर्द प्रधान देश होने के कारण उसी को मिलती है। तो वो भी जो उसका घर से उसका भाई या उसका बाप या उसका पति जो है वो सारी मजदूरी लेकर के उसको जो चाहिए थोड़ा बहुत राशन उसको ले देता है, और बाकी अपनी मर्जी से वो खर्च करता है। यहाँ पर जो ब्रिक किलन वर्कर्स हैं वो 14 से 16 घंटे काम करते हैं, भले वो स्त्री हो या पुरुष हो, क्योंकि यहाँ पर काफी ज्यादा जो ब्रिक्स बनती हैं, तो लेकिन इनको कभी भी कोई पैसा जो महिलाओं को है वो नहीं दिया जाता। तो दूसरा सबसे बड़ा जो महिलाओं के लिए एक वो बोल सकते हैं कि अ, कोई शर्म का कोई पर्दा नहीं है। जब हम लोग भट्ठे पे जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे टॉयलेट का कोई फैसिलिटी नहीं रहता भट्ठे पे। वो साथ लगते जो खेत होते हैं वहाँ पे टॉयलेट के लिए जाते हैं। कई बार क्या होता है कि ज़िम्मेदार उनको देख लेता है तो वो उनको डंडे से भगाता है, या फिर जो चौपाल पे जो लड़के बैठे रहते हैं या तो वो उनको टॉन्ट करते हैं। तो वो एक जो है वो उनको कोई पर्दा नहीं है टॉयलेट के लिए। इवन उनके नहाने के लिए भी जो उन्होंने बाथरूम बनाया रहता है उस पे कोई छत नहीं होती है। वो महिलाएं या तो अगर नलके से नहाएंगी तो वो कपड़ा पूरा अपना पहन के अपने बदन को साबुन भी नहीं लगा सकती, वो कपड़ा को साबुन लगाकर ही नहाती हैं। तो ये ऐसा कंडीशन है यहाँ पे जो ब्रिक किलन वीमेन वर्कर्स हैं। अगर यहाँ पे टॉयलेट्स जो पथेर सेक्शन में, क्योंकि जो पथेर होती है वो भट्ठे से थोड़ा सा हटके होती है, तो वो जो पथेर है वहाँ पे जो अगर कोई टॉयलेट है भी तो बस एक वहाँ पे वो एक गड्ढा सा खोद देते हैं, वहीं पे वो लोग टॉयलेट जाते हैं, और उन वहाँ वो भी कोई साफ सफाई का वो कुछ वहाँ पे ऐसा कोई खास प्रबंध नहीं है, जिससे उनको काफी परेशानी होती है। तो अगर हम लोग महिलाओं के स्वास्थ्य की बात करें, जब महिला जो है अगर वो गर्भवती हो जाती है तो वो गर्भ अवस्था में भी पूरा काम करती है। वहाँ पर जो ईंट बनाने का काम है, पथेर का काम है, वो पैरों पर बैठ के वो बनाते हैं ईंट, तो वो सारा टाइम अपना जो गर्भ अवस्था का है वहीं पर काम करती हैं। बहुत बार यही होता है कि उनके जो मिस कैरेज वगैरह है महिलाओं के वो बहुत ज्यादा होते हैं ब्रिक किलन महिलाओं के। तो दूसरा ये कि जैसे हर गांव में आशा वर्कर होती है, उन और भट्ठे को कोई भी आशा वर्कर जो है वो चेक करने नहीं जाती है, क्योंकि जो ब्रिक किलन होता है वो शहर अपने गांव से कुछ 2-2.5 किलोमीटर की दूरी पे होता है, और कोई भी जो आशा वर्कर है वो इतना गनीमत नहीं समझती कि उन महिलाओं को वहां पे जाके चेकअप किया जाए, उनको कोई जो मेडिसिन है वो प्रोवाइड करवाई जाए या कुछ ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। और उनका जो गर्भवती महिलाओं को यहाँ पे कुछ पौष्टिक भोजन दिया जाता है, वो भी उनको जो है वो कुछ नहीं मिलता है। और गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से भी जो फैसिलिटी है कि जनेपा स्कीम बोलते हैं उसको इधर में, तो वो भी जो है वो उनको नहीं मिलती है। और भट्ठा मालिक की तरफ से उनको कोई भी मैटरनिटी बेनिफिट भी नहीं दिया जाता। दूसरा जो है यहाँ पे कि यहाँ पे सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट बहुत ज्यादा होती है औरतों की। अभी मैंने बात किया कि वहाँ पे टॉयलेट नहीं है, तो एक तो यही सबसे बड़ा है कि वहाँ पे टॉयलेट ना होना, और लोगों के अभी एक महिला को अगर किसी का पेट खराब हो गया तो उसको बार बार जाना है, तो उसको बार बार जाना पड़ेगा। तो अगर टॉयलेट है, एक टॉयलेट पे एक भट्ठे पे एक पक्का टॉयलेट होता है, वो भी वहाँ पर जो अपना मालिक यूज करता है वही होता है। अगर वहाँ पे जाते हैं तो उनको एक हरासमेंट होती है, वहाँ पे उनकी मार पिटाई बड़ी होती है महिलाओं की। कोई आपस में झगड़ा हो गया या जो इनके मुंशी या ठेकेदार होते हैं उनसे कभी झगड़ा हो गया, या फिर ये कि औरतों को जो है कभी इनको पेमेंट ना होना, अगर वो अपने वहाँ पे माँगने के लिए जाती हैं, अपना भट्ठा मालिक के ऑफ़िस में, उसका मुंशी या उसका जो ठेकेदार है, वो उसको कुछ गलत कमेंट्स करते हैं या उसको कुछ गलत तरीके से टच करते हैं, तो वहाँ पे कोई भी जो अगेंस्ट सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट कमेटी है, पंजाब में एक भी भट्ठे पर नहीं बनाई गई। क्योंकि ये फैक्ट्रीज़ एक्ट के अंडर में आता है, वहाँ पे जहाँ पे भी 20 से लोग जो ज़्यादा लोग काम करेंगे, वहाँ पे ये कमेटी बनेगी। लेकिन पंजाब के एक सिंगल भट्ठे पे भी ये जो है सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट कमेटी नहीं बनाई गई। तो जो महिलाएँ हैं उनको सेक्सुअली भी बड़ा शोषित किया जाता है, तो वो अपनी कंप्लेंट कहाँ करें? अगर वो थाना में जाती हैं, तो वो वही है कि पुलिस वाले जो है वो भट्ठा मालिक से मिल जाते हैं और उनकी कोई सुनवाई भी नहीं होती। यहाँ पे जो भट्ठे का काम करने वाली लोग हैं वो ज़्यादा माइग्रेंट हैं, जिसमें छत्तीसगढ़, यूपी से यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा लेबर आती है। तो जो प्रवासी मज़दूर रहते हैं, वो उसको ये भी एक डर रहता है कि मेरा यहाँ पे तो कोई नहीं है, मैं बस नहीं, मेरी सुनवाई भी नहीं होगी। कई बार मज़दूर इससे डरता बोलता भी नहीं है। और जो इसके और सबसे गंभीर समस्या है कि भट्ठों पे सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वाटर नहीं है। यहाँ पे क्या करते हैं, एक डिग सा बना देते हैं, उसमें पानी इकट्ठा कर लेते हैं, तो उसी में से वो लोग पीने का पानी यूज़ करते हैं, नहाने-धोने का, कपड़ा धोने का, वहीं से पानी लेते हैं। कहीं एक नलका होता है, हैंडपंप होता है, लेकिन हैंडपंप से कितने लोग पानी भरेंगे? तो फिर वही उनको मजबूर होकर जो साथ में लगी खेतों में होती है मोटर, वहाँ से लेना पड़ता है पानी, तो वहाँ पे उनको गालियाँ निकाल कर भगा देते हैं। तो ये एक वहाँ पे गंदा, या वो लोग क्या करते हैं कि एक घड़ा रख लेते हैं, घड़े में पानी को पहले छानते हैं, पानी छानने के बाद उसके में एक फिटकरी होती है, उसको उससे साफ कर दूसरे या तीसरे दिन उस पानी को वो यूज़ कर सकते हैं पानी पीने के लिए। तो पंजाब तो वैसे पंजाब का नाम ही 5 आब है, 5 आब का मतलब है 5 दरिया थे यहाँ पे पानी के लिए। पंजाब में ही पानी की स्थिति बड़ी गंभीर हो गई है आजकल, तो लोगों को जो है वो साफ पीने का पानी नहीं है। और नेक्स्ट इसमें है कि लोगों के पास जो महिलाएँ हैं स्पेशली, उनको कोई भी सोशल सिक्योरिटी स्कीम से नहीं जोड़ा जाता। जैसे मैंने पहले भी बात करी कि इनको लेबर ही नहीं माना जाता, वर्कर ही नहीं माना जाता, इसीलिए इनका कहीं भी भट्ठा मालिक प्रोविडेंट फंड नहीं काटते हैं, ना ही इनको कोई ग्रेच्युटी मिलती है। कहीं-कहीं भट्ठे पे जो है वो मेल मेंबर का प्रोविडेंट फंड और ग्रेच्युटी मिलती है। लेकिन यहाँ पे रजिस्टर में नाम ना होने की वजह से इनको कोई प्रोविडेंट फंड, कोई ग्रेच्युटी कुछ भी नहीं मिला। अभी साथी बात कर रहे थे कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स की, कोविड में बहुत बुरा हाल हुआ। तो सेम सिचुएशन ये भी पंजाब में रहा कि कोविड-19 के दौरान जितने मज़दूर उससे पहले यहाँ पे काम करने के लिए आए थे, वो यहीं फँस के रह गए। क्योंकि उनके पास वापस जाने के लिए किराया नहीं था, भट्ठा मालिक ने बोल दिया कि उनके पास पैसा नहीं है, तो वो कैसे करेंगे? उनको पैसा नहीं दे सकते, और कुछ एडवांस उन्होंने पहले ही अपने गाँव में ही ले लेते हैं वो लोग यहाँ आने के लिए। तो उस और भट्ठे भी नहीं चले, ये कर्फ्यू की वजह से यहाँ पे पंजाब में 2 महीने कर्फ्यू रहा। तो कर्फ्यू के दौरान कोई काम भी नहीं हुआ, तो उन मज़दूरों के सिर पे जो था, वो ब्याज लग-लग के उन्होंने भट्ठा मालिक को अभी डेट देना है। अभी उनकी कंडीशन ऐसी हो गई कि वो बॉन्डेड लेबर हो गई यहाँ पे। तो जब तक वो उस भट्ठा मालिक का डेट क्लियर नहीं करते, जो उन्होंने अपने गाँव में लिया था, उस पे इंटरेस्ट पड़-पड़ के, अब वो इतना ज़्यादा हो गया कि अभी उनको 2 सीज़न और लगाएँगे, तब भी उनका वो डेट नहीं उतर सकता। इसलिए जो यहाँ से पंजाब से बहुत सारे माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स, कोई पैदल गया, कोई साइकिल से गया, कोई कैसे गया, लेकिन जो ब्रिक किलन वर्कर्स थे वो नहीं जा पाए, क्योंकि उनका सबसे बड़ा ये था कि उनके सर पे डेट है, भट्ठा मालिक उनको भट्ठे से निकलने नहीं देता। अभी ये कर्फ्यू और जो लॉकडाउन था उसके दौरान उन्होंने कुछ राशन जो था वो भट्ठा मालिकों ने उनको लेकर दिया। अभी वो राशन का पैसा भी उनके सर पे खड़ा है। तो बहुत सारे मज़दूर आते हैं कि हम लोगों को वापस यूपी या छत्तीसगढ़ जाना है, लेकिन हमारे सर पे किसी के 1.5 लाख कर्जा है, किसी के 2 लाख कर्जा है। जब तक वो पे नहीं कर पाएँगे, भट्ठा मालिक उनको भट्ठे से नहीं निकलने देता। अभी स्मिता जी ने कहा कि डबल रेट मिल रहा है। यहाँ पे बस वो ही है कि न्यूज़पेपर में है कि यहाँ पे डबल रेट ट्रिपल रेट मिल रहा है, लेकिन यहाँ पे कोई भी ऐसा एक भी सिंगल भट्टा नहीं है जहाँ पे ज्यादा पैसे दे करके काम करवाया जाता हो। इवन अगर हम लोग एग्रीकल्चर की भी बात करें तो एग्रीकल्चर पे भी सिमिलर है। अभी यहाँ पे ये लग रहा है, पैडी लग रहा है, तो लोगों ने जो स्पेशली जो दलित थे वही पैडी का लगाने का काम करते हैं, तो उन्होंने उनको बोल दिया कि हम लोग तुम्हें 2500 या 3000 रुपया देंगे। अभी यहाँ पे अमृतसर में एक गांव पंडोरी है, वहां पे कल ही वहां से खबर आई कि वहां पर उन्होंने 4000 मांगा और उन्होंने एग्री कर लिया कि चलो 4000 में लगा दो झोना। जब 4000 में लगाया, बाकी जमींदारों को पता चल गया तो उन्होंने लेबरर्स के घर पे हमला कर दिया और वहां पे गोलियां चल गई परसों रात को, और वहां पे 2 लोग जो हैं वो गोली लगने से बच्चे भी उसमें जख्मी हो गए। तो सिमिलर सिचुएशन जो है वो ब्रिक किलन का है। ब्रिक किलन में भी वो मजदूर जो हैं वो छत्तीसगढ़ या बिहार के मजदूर, जो पंजाबी मजदूर थे वो तो निकल गए, लेकिन जो अदर स्टेट्स के लेबरर्स हैं वो अभी भी यहाँ पे फंसे हुए हैं। वो वहां से निकल नहीं पा रहे क्योंकि वो जब तक अपना डेट क्लियर नहीं करेंगे तब तक वो वहां पर नहीं जा सकते। तो एक ये भी है कि
Thank you, Gagan. Please stay with us. Sorry to cut you short again because thoda time limitation and we have 10 minutes.
okay,
Everyone, please continue with us and we'll come back with questions. So friends, Gagan clearly told us that what is happening in Punjab with respect to women in Bricklin. She highlighted the precarious situation of toilets and the kind of harassment women face in Bricklin industries, and that how it is a myth that agricultural laborers are being paid double or triple, and even when they are being played, how the dynamics of intersectionality of caste and somebody was posing a question on religion are playing. So yes, when we look at the translation of the things on the ground, caste and as well as religion is playing a major role when it comes to the relief or any kind of wage structure down there, along with the interplay of gender. With this, we have two discussants with us. We have Deepika and Siraj from Mahila Trust and as well as Thaneshwarji from our board with the Delhi Construction Welfare Board. So, Thaneshwarji, any quick comments from your side on this? Thaneshwarji, can you come in?
जी
आपकी तरफ से कोई कमेंट, जो आपने बातचीत सुनी दिल्ली की और यूपी की स्थिति, तो यूपी की और पंजाब की स्थिति आपने सुनी गगन से, तो आपकी समझ में दिल्ली में क्या स्थिति है? अगर आप 2-3 पॉइंट्स में अपनी बात को कहना चाहेंगे तो।
अपनी बात रखनी है, अभी कमेंट देनी है?
जी, कमेंट देना है।
अच्छा, मतलब मेरे बात रखने का समय तो है ना?
हाँ, आप बात करिए जी।
नहीं, मैं सबसे पहले तो धन्यवाद एक्शनएड का कि मौका दिया और इतना महत्वपूर्ण विषय के ऊपर बात करने का ये जो वेबिनार किया उसके लिए, क्योंकि इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में और स्पेशली कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स और बिल्डिंग वर्कर्स के लिए जो आप लोगों ने ये वेबिनार रखा, उसके लिए मैं अपने तरफ से, संगठन की तरफ से धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। और अभी जो 3 साथियों ने, पूर्व वक्ताओं ने बात रखी, विशेष रूप से तेलंगाना से जो मैडम ने बात रखी, उन्होंने भी कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स पे अपने अनुभव बताए, और संदीप भाई ने भी यूपी के अनुभव बताए, और अभी पंजाब के साथी हमारे बीच में रख रही थी। तो जो तीनों स्टेट के जो भी अनुभव उन लोगों ने बताया कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर के बारे में, स्पेशली उससे अलग नहीं है दिल्ली का मामला, लेकिन दिल्ली का एक, क्योंकि दिल्ली राजधानी है, उस हिसाब से अगर यहाँ का देखा जाए तो कुछ चैलेंज, अलग तरह के चैलेंज भी यहाँ पर हैं, जो निर्माण क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले मजदूरों के लिए देखने को मिलते हैं। मैं अपनी बात को रखते हुए थोड़ा सा इसलिए बताना चाहूँगा कि ये हम लोग जानते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर के बाद सबसे बड़ा इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में अगर सेक्टर है असंगठित क्षेत्र में, तो कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर ही है, और लगभग 8-10 करोड़ के करीब पूरे अगर देश के रूप में देखें तो इतने वर्कर्स जो हैं इस क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले हैं, और लगभग 3.5 करोड़ के करीब, जैसा सरकार की तरफ से डाटा है उसमें 3.5 करोड़ के करीब वर्कर रजिस्टर्ड हैं जो स्टेट बोर्ड्स के अंदर, और लगभग 45,000 करोड़ के करीब पैसा है जो वेलफेयर के लिए है। तो इतना सब होने के बाद भी अगर आज स्थिति देखें तो बहुत विकट स्थिति है कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स की। मैं उन साथियों की बातों को से सहमत होते हुए और उनका जो उन्होंने अपने अनुभव बताया, चाहे विशेषकर महिला वर्कर को लेके, उन बातों को ना दोहराते हुए मैं दिल्ली के अनुभवों को आपके बीच में रख रहा हूँ कि दिल्ली में भी ये जो 1996 एक्ट के तहत 2002 में बोर्ड बना था और आज बोर्ड को लगभग 18 साल हो गए बने हुए दिल्ली के अंदर। और आप देखोगे कि 2 साल पहले तक जहां दिल्ली में 5.5 लाख के करीब वर्कर रजिस्टर्ड थे और आज जो है वो संख्या घटकर 50,000 के ऊपर आ गई है। तो ये बड़ी विकट स्थिति है और इसकी एकदम कैसे 5.5 से 50,000 पे आ गए, क्योंकि 2 साल पहले तक दिल्ली में ऑफलाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन होता था, मैन्युअली रजिस्ट्रेशन होता था वर्कर का। 2 साल पहले से ऑनलाइन का जो रजिस्ट्रेशन जब से स्टार्ट किया है तब से ये ऑनलाइन की प्रक्रिया के कारण बहुत स्लो, एक तो लेंदी वर्कर हो गया रजिस्ट्रेशन का प्रक्रिया, और दूसरा ये है कि बड़ा डिफिकल्ट, बड़ा लंबा चौड़ा फार्म है रजिस्ट्रेशन करने का और बहुत सारे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन वर्कर को करने पड़ते हैं, आधार कार्ड, बैंक कार्ड, इसके अलावा फैमिली के पूरा डिटेल, स्कूल का, बच्चों के आधार कार्ड, मतलब 15-20 कागज ऐसे हैं जो उसको अपना स्कैन करके लोड करने पड़ेंगे, तभी जाके उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन होगा। तो ये आप देखोगे कि दिल्ली के अंदर अभी जब ये कोविड-19 की स्थिति से पहले क्या, दिल्ली में तो लगभग 1 साल से काम बंद ही है, क्योंकि यहाँ अलग अलग प्रभाव पड़ते हैं। अभी यहाँ पहले नवंबर दिसंबर में देखोगे, अक्टूबर नवंबर में तो पर्यावरण के नाम पर पूरा कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम पूरा बंद था। उस समय भी वर्कर्स को कुछ उसका कोई रिलीफ नहीं मिला, कोई इनको कंपनसेशन नहीं मिला, काम बंद हुआ एनवायरनमेंट में जिसमें वर्कर का कोई रोल नहीं था, तो वो उस स्थिति में भी काम बंद था। उसके बाद दिल्ली के अंदर देखोगे फिर ये जनवरी में आप देखोगे दंगे हुए दिल्ली में, तो काम बंद था। फिर ये इलेक्शन आ गए विधानसभा, तो आचार संहिता लग गई। इसके बाद मार्च से आप देखोगे तो ये कोरोना वायरस वाला जो फैसला, तो लगभग 8-9 महीने से दिल्ली में कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स तो बहुत विकट स्थिति के अंदर अपना जीवन जी रहा है। और सरकार की तरफ से जरूर इस समय पहल हुई थी कि भाई जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स हैं तो उनको रिलीफ के लिए, जैसे संदीप भाई बता रहे थे, वहां पे 1000 रुपए वर्कर को दिए गए। दिल्ली के अंदर भी 5000 रुपए वर्कर्स को देने की घोषणा हुई और लगभग 40,000 वर्कर को ही, क्योंकि 40,000 वर्कर ही लाइव कैटेगरी में मिले, मतलब जिनकी सदस्यता बोर्ड में चल रही थी वो 40,000 वर्कर ही थे मार्च अप्रैल के टाइम पे। तो जिस समय ये लॉकडाउन हुआ तो उन्हीं वर्कर को ही केवल 10,000 रुपए 5-5 हजार की 2 किस्तों में फायदा हो पाया। लेकिन बड़ी विकट स्थिति है कि 5.5 लाख वर्कर में से सिर्फ 40,000 वर्कर ही उसको फायदा ले पाए, जबकि दिल्ली सरकार ने घोषणा की थी कि हम हर वर्कर को देंगे, कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स को। वैसे मोटा एस्टिमेट ये है कि दिल्ली में 10 लाख वर्कर है, लेकिन फिर भी रजिस्ट्रेशन ना होने के कारण और रजिस्ट्रेशन के बाद रिन्यूअल ना होने के कारण वर्कर्स आज बेनिफिट नहीं ले पाए। अब सरकार ने कोर्ट में केस, कई 3-4 कोर्ट के में, हाई कोर्ट में केस डाले संगठनों ने, यूनियनों ने, तब जाके उनके दबाव सरकार को पड़ा है कि भाई उनको वर्कर्स को आप रजिस्ट्रेशन करो और उनको सबको ये मदद दो। तो अभी शुरू हुआ है, 15 तारीख से लॉन्च हुआ है ऑनलाइन की सभी वर्कर्स का एप्लीकेशन लेने का। लगभग 30,000 के करीब अभी एप्लीकेशन आई हैं, लेकिन इसमें भी दिक्कत है कि उनका एप्लीकेशन तो आई है लेकिन अभी रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि रजिस्ट्रेशन करने के लिए जो रजिस्ट्रेशन अधिकारी हैं जो अप्रूव करेंगे वो दिल्ली में 9 जिले हैं, लेकिन सिर्फ 5 अधिकारी हैं। उन 5 अधिकारी में से 2 अधिकारी छुट्टी पे है बीमारी के नाम से, तो 3 अधिकारी हैं जिनको इन वर्कर्स का वेरिफिकेशन करना है, अप्रूव करना है, रजिस्ट्रेशन करना है। तो कहीं ना कहीं बहुत स्लो स्पीड से हो रहा है और जिस कारण जो है वर्कर को बेनिफिट नहीं मिल रहा। इसके अलावा आप देखोगे कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट, जब लॉकडाउन की स्थिति में साइट्स के ऊपर ठेकेदार भी छोड़ के भाग गया, एम्प्लॉयर भी छोड़ के भाग गया, तो बड़ा विकट स्थिति थी उनको अपना दिल्ली में सर्वाइव करने की। ना उनको भोजन मिल पा रहा था, ना उनको सुरक्षा मिल पा रही थी। सरकार की तरफ से जो अरेंजमेंट थे वो स्कूलों के अंदर अरेंजमेंट किए थे खाना खाने के लिए, लेकिन वो जहाँ साइट है या जहाँ वर्कर रह रहा है वहां से कोई 1 किलोमीटर दूर, कोई 2 किलोमीटर दूर, तो ऐसे में ना तो वो वहां पर जाकर भोजन ले पाए, ना वो अपना उनका कोई, क्योंकि दिहाड़ी वर्कर होते हैं तो ऐसे भी नहीं कोई सेविंग होती जिससे कि वो रहते। किराए पे जो रह रहे थे किराएदारों ने उनको, मकान मालिकों ने खाली किया। तो बहुत ह्यूज यह है माइग्रेशन जो हुआ इस समय, जो माइग्रेंट होती है वर्कर दिल्ली से, उस कारण जो है दिल्ली में अभी बहुत कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम दोबारा से स्टार्ट तो कर दिया लेकिन अब लेबर नहीं है। और अगर महिलाओं वर्कर की स्थिति देखें तो महिला वर्कर दिल्ली में पहले होती थी। आपको पता हो एशियाड खेल हुए, कॉमनवेल्थ गेम हुए, तब महिला वर्कर थी, लेकिन उसके बाद से दिल्ली में चाहे कोई भी साइट ले लो, बड़ी साइट पे महिला वर्कर अब है ही नहीं। दिल्ली के बोर्ड में भी, रजिस्ट्रेशन में भी अगर आप देखोगे 15-20% से ज्यादा महिला वर्कर रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है इस हमारे दिल्ली बोर्ड के अंदर। और आप उदाहरण के लिए मैं एक उदाहरण देता हूँ, दिल्ली में मेट्रो का काम है, इतना बड़ा ह्यूज प्रोजेक्ट है, कई हजार करोड़ का प्रोजेक्ट है, 25-30 हजार वर्कर उसमें काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन एक सिंगल महिला वर्कर आपको उसमें कोई काम करते हुए नहीं मिलेगी। तो जिस कारण से बहुत सारे जो बेनिफिट है दिल्ली के अंदर, लगभग 15 स्कीम है, और उसमें से 3-4 स्कीम तो बहुत अच्छी है जो महिलाओं के। हमारे यहाँ दिल्ली में बोर्ड की तरफ से मैटरनिटी बेनिफिट 1000 रुपए तक बेनिफिट है।
थानेश्वर जी, हम आपके पास आएंगे। आप प्लीज हमारे साथ बने रहे। थानेश्वर जी, so friends, Thaneshwar ji is going to continue with us. I need to translate what he has said. So he is basically also highlighting the grave situation in the capital, not only because of corona, but because of the Delhi elections, and as well as of the Northeast Delhi riots, how the construction workers were not able to get work in that period as well. He also highlights big projects like Delhi Metro, which continue to have 25 to 30,000 workers, but not even a single woman worker on the ground. He highlights that the registration process is very poor, and how because of lack of personnel in the board and as well as in relevant institutions, the construction workers are not even getting registered, so let alone the reach of benefits to them. So that is what broadly Thaneshwar ji is trying to point out. He is member with one of the Delhi boards, and he's also an advisory with the Informal Workers Board there in Delhi. We also have Deepika and Siraj with us from Mahila Trust. So Deepika ji, आप क्योंकि महिला ट्रस्ट के साथ काम करती हैं और आपने भी जमीन पर काफी स्थिति देखी है महिलाओं की, 2-3 बिंदुओं में आप अपनी बात को रखिए हमारे बीच में। सिराज, मे बी यू कैन स्पीक, और दीपिका, both of you can share 1 to 2 lines on it. Deepika, we can't hear you. Can you be a bit loud, please? By the time Deepika speaks in, we have Siraj on the video with us. So we'll request Siraj you to please come in and share.
Yeah, I think there is some audio problem with Deepika.
Yeah, that's okay. You can please share.
Yeah, so I think Mahila Housing Seva Trust is working closely with the construction worker in Ranchi, Jharkhand. But before I come to the Jharkhand situation, I will just like to talk about the survey that Mahila Housing Seva Trust carried out. We finished last week, which was carried out for the poor slum dwellers in 7 states across India. And we are totally relying on government for survival of these poor people. But if you look at the statistic, I have the numbers. So when you talk about the survival things like food ration, how many families were able to avail the food during this lockdown, the number is only coming to around 75%. So we still have 25% of the families residing in these slums, and mostly includes the construction worker, were unable to access the government ration that is provided. When we come to about the compensation, this is not only related to the construction worker, but any kind of the compensation scheme or the cash transfer scheme that government has announced. We have heard about a lot of cash transfer scheme, but only 60% of these families were able to avail any kind of cash transfer scheme. So we know that around 40% families have not received any kind of cash subsidy from the government. Coming back to the announcement for the construction workers, so the representative from I think Sandeep ji from the UP mentioned about 1,000 rupees for the construction worker, and in Delhi definitely it was 5,000. But the important point that even was endorsed by the previous speaker is that there are few construction workers registered with the labor board. So even in our survey and in our assessment, there are only 20% of the construction worker who are registered with this board, and hence the 80% of people are not receiving any kind of cash support from the government. And even when you are looking at the women from that particular group, the percentage even goes lower. So I think the issue that we are addressing is that when you talk about the survival of these people, we are totally relying on the data and the registration and the eligibility of these people on the government record. And we know that very less percent of people are actually on the government record. I will also like to endorse the issue which was raised by the previous speaker regarding the registration mode, right? So even when you talk about the construction worker in Jharkhand, the registration procedure has been moved from the offline registration to online registration. And we need to understand that the people whom we are talking about registering, they are mostly they are illiterate people. They can't access the online system. And renewal and registration has drastically reduced in last 3 to 4 years, which means that when there is a time of the crisis, these people are unable to even avail any of the government schemes. We just had an interaction with, so when we are talking about, so I totally agree with Professor Khan also. I think he raised a very important point that the cases are increasing now, and it is very important that the most vulnerable among the society are kept in the safe environment, which means that we want these people to be at their home. And if we want them to be at home, it's important that we are taking care about their survival needs. And basically he was referring to 3-time meals, which is very much essential. And even if they are going out today, if I talk about the Jharkhand, we just did an assessment last week, and we found that the number of people who are actually available on the labor chalk, which is the point in the city where the laborers are skilled and the unskilled laborers are hired, you only have the 15% of the skilled and unskilled laborer available in the market, because the construction industry has almost not started. Means real estate industry has not actually picked up. There are no signals that they are going to start the work in near future, maybe in couple of months. So particularly when we are talking about the construction worker, there are two kinds of need that we need to address. First is the survival, which is at present, how we can ensure that they are getting the food there, so they are surviving this situation. And we need to be very mindful that real estate industry is in real trouble, and construction, there are no signals that construction will pick up in next 6 months to 2 years. So these people are not going to get work immediately. So how we address their livelihood issue in the mid and long term? We are also, the data also indicates that a lot of people who are actually working in the construction industry have already starting to look at an alternate livelihood, because the livelihood is not available in the construction industry. So the people that, women that we were working with, almost like 20 to 30% women have already started working in the other industry for the sake of the livelihood. So these are the situation on the ground. So definitely, I think there are the solutions that we are working on. First is the survival need that we need to address. And second is also about government at present doesn't seem to be focusing on the mid and the long-term need of the poor families, particularly people who are working in the construction industry. The solution needs to be derived that how we are going to help these people to get back to the normal life. And I don't think that that's going to be in next few months. We might have to come up with a strategy for at least next 6 months to 2 years. So that's all from my side. I will just check with Deepika Ben if the audio is okay.
All right, so we'll come back to Deepika when the questions are there. So thank you, Siraj. In brief, in next in 5 minutes, you were able to kind of sum up the study and the findings of the situation out there. You very rightly said that there is need for a midterm and a long-term strategy when it comes to looking at the solutions for informal workers. There are a lot of questions which have come to us, and before we go on to the questions, we have with us Irfan Mohammed. He's with our ActionAid regional office in Hyderabad. We'll request Irfan to please come online and give concluding remarks in next 5 minutes, and then we can take in questions from the panelists. And there are specific questions, Professor Amir and Revti ji, on your advice in terms of numbers and statistics, which we look at, offering solutions. So everybody is very keen on what Siraj was mentioning. There is a need for long-term strategy, and what are the numbers saying there is something everyone wants to focus. We'll come back to your remarks, but over to Irfan right now. Irfan, are you there? All right, so there is some technical challenge with Irfan there. So Professor Amir, would you like to comment on the questions on way forward? What do the numbers tell us? Where should the government put its energies on other than feeding the people at the moment?
Yeah. So the question is on what is the way forward, is it?
Yeah.
Well, the way forward very simply is that we need better and more credible numbers. The problem is that our entire data is so deficient that we are unable to do anything about it. And that's why we don't have the numbers. We are unable to make any policy decisions. That is the first point. The second point in terms of going forward is to ensure that we look at it as a problem that has to be solved right away. We can't keep pushing it ahead, saying that look, this is going to be something that will get sorted out with the economy opening up. What we need to do is to ensure that there are two separate problems. The epidemic and the economic problem are two different issues. We need to treat them separately. The final way forward that I'm saying is the big thing on the policy front, that if we want to make our economy, give our economy a stimulus, there is no better way to do that than to enhance the consumption demand. And that will happen when we are able to transfer cash to people who need them. So if we are able to do that, and we must, I don't see ourselves having any choice. We have to ensure that all these people who are vulnerable now get direct cash transfers and are therefore able to build consumption demand. That is what will allow the economic stimulus to take place. So it is pragmatism coupled with acute compassion that will drive the way forward.
All right, so there's a specific question, Professor Amir, for you, which is up on looking at labor unions and their role, and whether they have failed or they have been able to push for, especially with the changes in the labor laws which are taking place. So your take on it, and then we'll go to Professor Revti to you.
Okay, yeah, that's an important point. Our labor unions have been so marginalized, and especially given the political economy, that it is almost impossible for them to be able to say anything. They should have been out there demanding a bigger role and should have ensured that the government necessarily takes their viewpoint before coming up with these big announcements at a situation when it is so impossible to come up with major policy on completely unconnected things. So these labor laws that were pushed with such urgency at a time when they were just not relevant is something that our labor unions and the political parties that back them have to take care of. There is just no choice. And I think that it's been a big disaster that we have made our labor unions so irrelevant.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Professor, you would want to come in here?
Yes, on the issue of numbers, I think I feel that immediate focus should be on the registration of the workers, because I think the whole of this pandemic issue and the migration and all these have shown how haphazard our data systems are, and then the registration of especially the migrant workers, informal workers. So I think it's at least now we have to come up with this and then make some kind of a easy kind of solution, online portal to register the workers, and the labor departments in respective states should take definitely a strong step towards this to register all the workers, where the source and the destination, and with minimum kind of paperwork that is there. But we require this data, at least even to transfer money to the households or to the workers. We at least need their registration, their name, their accounts, and all that. So immediate focus should be on this. This was also mentioned in earlier kind of NCUS, Arjun Sengupta's report and all, but in a different context. But this pandemic situation has really brought out this very, very clearly, that we require this data and current data also. What's the second question that's there? Is it any specific question?
Yeah, that's it. I think it helps to have the direction. There is one specific question which asks for advice to different ministries, especially Ministry of Labor, and is around the question of convergence. So थानेश्वर जी, आपके एक्सपीरियंस से क्या आपको लगता है कि नीचे जब काम कर रहे होते हैं तो डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स में कन्वर्जेंस नहीं है, जब वर्कर को सैलरी देनी होती है या रजिस्ट्रेशन प्रोसेस होता है, any kind of benefit which comes to the board, do you feel there is any lack of convergence there?
जी, दो तीन
आपकी क्या एडवाइस होगी?
देखिए, दो तीन सजेशन,
इतने टाइम से आप अटैच्ड हैं, आप व्हाट इज योर एडवाइस?
दो तीन एडवाइस कह लो या सजेशन कह लो। एक तो सबसे पहली बात तो ये है कि ये जो पोर्टेबिलिटी जो है ना, एक तो पोर्टेबिलिटी की प्रॉब्लम है कि जो वर्कर यहाँ रजिस्टर्ड होता है फिर वो एडजॉइनिंग एनसीआर में चले जाओ, हरियाणा में चले जाओ तो उसका वहाँ उसका कोई फायदा नहीं होता, गुड़गांव में चले जाओ उसका बहादुरगढ़ में होता। तो कहीं ना कहीं अगर रजिस्ट्रेशन है तो उसकी पोर्टेबिलिटी रहे, हर स्टेट में वो एक तो एप्लीकेबल हो। दूसरा, जो रजिस्ट्रेशन है ये वॉलेंट्री है। अगर इसको हम कंपलसरी की डिमांड करें कि कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट पे या कहीं पर भी वर्कर जब काम करेगा तभी तब जब उसका वर्कर बोर्ड में रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए। तो अगर कंपलसरी होगा तो इससे क्या होगा कि बहुत मैक्सिमम लेवल पर वर्कर्स जो है बोर्ड के साथ जुड़ेगा और उसको बेनिफिट मिलेगा। अभी वॉलेंट्री होने के कारण जो है बहुत सारे वर्कर्स का साइट के ऊपर एम्प्लॉयर या कॉन्ट्रैक्टर रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं कराते, तो उस कारण बहुत से इंसिडेंट भी हो जाती हैं। तो घटना के टाइम पे वो वर्कर बोर्ड में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं होता, उसको बेनिफिट नहीं मिल पाता। तो कहीं ना कहीं एक तो ये वॉलेंट्री ना होके कहीं ना कहीं कंपलसरी रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए अगर काम कर रहा है, साइट पे काम कर रहा है वो। दूसरा, उसकी पोर्टेबिलिटी होनी चाहिए। तीसरा जो है कि जो कुछ स्कीम्स हैं वो हर स्टेट में मिलनी चाहिए, सेम मतलब वो एक तरह से मॉडल स्कीम की तरह वो वहां पर हर जगह मिलनी चाहिए, ताकि उसको ये भरोसा रहे कि अगर मैंने रजिस्ट्रेशन करा लिया तो ये 3-4 चीज, एक्सीडेंट का हो गया, मैटरनिटी हो गया, हेल्थ एजुकेशन का हो गया, पेंशन का हो गया, तो मैं चाहे दिल्ली में हूँ, हरियाणा में, तेलंगाना में, मैं कहीं पर भी रहूंगा तो ये मुझे बेनिफिट मिल जाएंगे वहां पर। तो एक ये चीज भी चाहिए। तो इस तरह के अगर छोटा जो है कि प्रॉपर जो सिंपल, क्योंकि ये वर्कर है, आप इसको एसएमएस पे करोगे, ऑनलाइन करोगे, इसके बाद फिर वो ना और अंग्रेजी में उसका फॉर्म भरना होगा, रजिस्ट्रेशन, तो बड़ा दिक्कत है। साइबर कैफे पे वो जाएगा, अब इस समय कोविड टाइम पे उसको खाने के लिए पैसे नहीं है, उसके पास काम नहीं है, वो कैसे साइबर कैफे पे या कहीं पर भी ऑनलाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन पे पैसा खर्च कर पाएगा। तो कभी कभी ये भी दिक्कतें आती हैं जो हमने दिल्ली में भी बोला है कि देखिए इसको एक तो सिंप्लीफाई करो। दूसरा ये है कि बोर्ड के ऑफिस
alright, there seems to be a connection drop there at Thaneshwar ji's end. So
साल लग जाएगा अप्रूव करने में, जब तक तो उसका वो
friends, Thaneshwar ji, you are on mute at the moment. So friends, he has kindly suggested 3-4 things. One is the need for model rules to be there for uniform schemes out there. Second, he speaks about challenges when we do online registration of construction workers, especially at this point of time when the COVID situation is there on the ground. He also speaks about portability element which needs to be built in. Sandeep ji, what there is this specific question on the social security of workers. So आप इतने time से engaged हैं संदीप जी, आपका क्या सुझाव है on social security workers को क्या सिर्फ construction workers board की एक माध्यम हो सकता है या universal social security की गुहार हम कर सकते हैं? So over to you Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, are you there? All right, so this again seems to be a little disconnect there on connectivity at Sandeep ji's end. Gagan ji, if you are there and you would like to comment on this. Okay, so it seems that in both the northern regions in Punjab and in UP, we are facing some kind of an internet issue. Sandeep ji, if you are there, you can come in, please. Yeah. So Sandeep ji, any take on social security and challenges faced by health workers? Yes, Sandeep ji, you can please share. Okay, again, there is a drop in happening at his end. So maybe Irfan, you can come in here and, kind of sum up what the recommendations have come in the concluding sessions. And the questions which have remained unanswered, please write to us. We will take those questions to our respective panelists. We have Gaganji with us. Gagan, there is a specific question for Bricklin workers which asks ki, आपकी जो schemes हैं, why are they not getting on construction workers? Why are they not applicable to the Bricklin workers? And is there no compulsory registration? How can government improve that system? So you have 2 minutes for it.
स्मिता जी, आपका कुछ आवाज ज्यादा क्लियर नहीं है, आप फिर से रिपीट करेंगे?
गगन जी, सवाल ये है कि आप ब्रिकलिन वर्कर्स और कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स के बीच में जो सरकार ने जो स्कीम्स बनाई है, वो स्कीम्स जो है किस तरह से एप्लीकेबल हो सके ताकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को बेनिफिट मिल सके?
इसका ये है स्मिता जी कि जो भी वर्कर्स हैं ब्रिकलिन के या कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स के जो वर्कर्स हैं वो कुछ हद तक वो रजिस्टर्ड हैं, लेकिन जो ब्रिकलिन वर्कर्स हैं वो कहीं पे भी रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है। लेबर डिपार्टमेंट को भी नहीं पता कि यहाँ पर कौन वर्कर कौन से ब्रिकलिन पे काम कर रहा है। तो इनका एक जगह पे रजिस्ट्रेशन होना ब्रिकलिन वर्कर्स का भी, क्योंकि सिर्फ एक सेक्टर है पथेर जो ब्रिकलिन एंड कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर बोर्ड में रजिस्टर्ड होता है, अदरवाइज जो उसके बाकी 6 पार्ट हैं उसमें से कोई भी वर्कर है वो वहां पे रजिस्टर्ड नहीं होता। इवन कि अगर दूसरी स्टेट से आ रहे हैं वर्कर्स तो उनका जो इंटर स्टेट माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स वाला एक्ट बना है 1979 का, वहां पे रजिस्ट्रेशन हो उनका वहां पे स्टेट से चलने से पहले, और जहां पर वो पहुंचे स्टेट पे वहां पे भी अगर उनका रजिस्ट्रेशन हो तो एक अच्छा होगा कि उनको जो सोशल सिक्योरिटी बेनिफिट्स हैं वो मिल पाए। जैसे अभी सबसे बड़ी समस्या कि पीडीएस का है, जो यूपी बिहार के पीडीएस है वो यहाँ पे नहीं चलता है, तो वो फैसिलिटी जो है बेसिक फैसिलिटीज है वो भी उनको नहीं मिल रही है। तो इस हिसाब से उनको कुछ ऐसा नेशनल लेवल का ही हो पूरा कि वो कहीं पे भी जाएं और वो सोशल सिक्योरिटी एक ही बैनर के नीचे मिले, ये नहीं हो कि ये स्टेट का है वो अदर स्टेट में नहीं चलेगा। तो यहाँ पे फिर वो सबसे ज्यादा सफर करता है जो लेबरर है। तो आई थिंक सो कि एक ही मतलब नेशनल लेवल का एक होना चाहिए कि वो सभी जगह पे अप्लाई हो।
Okay, thank you. So this is another voice which is talking about portability of entitlements specifically for the informal labor. So over to you, Irfan, for the concluding remarks.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you all for being with us. Many issues have come up in this discussion for the past 1.5 hours here. Regarding the workers, both domestic workers, construction workers. Yesterday also we had a discussion on domestic workers. Today's today's focus on migrant workers as well as construction workers. Sorry, there is anger among workers right now as we see, and everybody has failed to protect them. This is the thing that we can see in the televisions as well as in newspapers also. And the contractors, the subcontractors, as well as the government has also given up supporting them or protecting them. And the situation of workers was not better earlier, but during the pandemic and after this COVID-19 started, the lockdowns and other things, the situation has become worse. And I also thank all the panelists and the key issues that they have discussed regarding the wages, the social security, safe working conditions, and the provisions for construction workers and other informal workers, how the government is looking into this, and what the situation is has been discussed veritably. And there is no access to work. A lot of other key issues were there: unequal distribution of wages, no job contracts in companies, and non-access to social security schemes. And even though the security schemes are there, they are not not of help to most of the workers. And the portability issues were also there. These are some of the issues that we have discussed that have come up in the discussion. And regarding each panelist, right from Professor Amrullah Khan, what he mentioned was about the three main broad points about the poverty, the hunger, and unemployment that are coming up as big challenges to the migrant workers as well as other construction workers, and how to deal with all this. He has highlighted with examples, with data as well as examples, and Professor Revati ji has succinctly pointed out the working and living conditions of construction workers, especially women construction workers. And she has given the data of construction workers, how the movement of labor from farm to non-farm sector, which kind of problems that especially women are facing in this pandemic right now, and then how vulnerability has increased further to women who have already got vulnerable, and the adverse impacts of layoffs as well as wage discrimination that are going there, and the kind of livelihood challenges that women are facing. She has clearly given some data also regarding the growth. Earlier, 9% growth rate in construction sector was there, and now it's very difficult for all the industries to come up to that level. And regarding the how that pandemic has hit hard with no work and no wages, then she has also concentrated more on women's issues, especially the women's issues of low-level work that they are doing without access to their skill enhancement. And then another important point is about the registration of workers, and less women are there in number. What we can see in registration, at least 20 to 30% women are working here in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and the registration of workers are also less, especially women workers are very less. This is what Professor Revati Madam has pointed out, and Sandeep Kareji from Vigyan Foundation, UP, has given the data regarding the Uttar Pradesh and other adjacent states also. And there he says 35% women are working in construction work, and he has given the ground level situation, how the livelihoods got affected and how the vulnerability has increased further. And the 3-month relief scheme for the workers, it has not covered almost a lot of people, because with conditions these schemes are there. One condition is for a construction worker, she or he should have got the card, divorcement card, as well as the patient card. If people don't have that, then they are they can't get access to those schemes. So a lot of problems at the ground level. Sandeep Kareji has been substantially raised these issues. And regarding the domestic violence also, he has mentioned the problem of domestic violence as it has increased in this pandemic, and how both their foundation as well as ActionAid has covered 50,000 workers with dry ration kits as well as cooked food, with health and medicine, with counseling and other things. And Gagandeep Kaur ji from Punjab, she has pointed out succinctly about the kind of problems that women are facing in bricklayer workers, especially in Punjab, and the migrant workers have been stuck up there without going anywhere, without having any livelihood opportunities, and they are taking debts again to survive. And then they have become most of them have become kind of wanted labor is there in Punjab, and she has given very clear picture about the job and the bricklayer workers there, and the kind of sexual harassment that is happening there rampantly, and basic amenities just like toilet facilities, washrooms, as well as other facilities are not there for women workers there, and no PFs as well as no gratuity for the women as they are not mentioned in the registers. So a lot of things are there, a lot of problems, issues we are looking into. And Thaneshwar ji from Delhi DOCW board member, he has also pointed out that around 3.5 crore workers are registered in all the states, and 40,000 crore rupees are there in the DOCWs in entire India. And Delhi has got around 5.5 lakh registered earlier, but now it is only 50,000 workers are registered. And this is due to the kind of online the conditions that they'll give. The government has set up that online registration is a must, and then around 20 to 30 documents they have to give to register themselves. So these are some of the important problems that have come up. 15 to 20% women are only registered here, and very less women are working in sites, even though there are 20 to 30,000 employees are there in big construction sites. So this is a very pathetic situation regarding especially women construction workers. And Siraj, during his talk, he said 60% of families avail direct benefits only, and very few construction workers are registered. And I got some problem with some audio when Siraj was speaking. Sorry for that. I couldn't note down some of the things regarding that. And then he said construction industries need to pick up, and it may take 6 months to 2 years for that. And later on, some of the question and answers, after some question and answer session, this is right now, we would like to end up. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to give a word of thanks to the distinguished panelists. I, on behalf of ActionAid as well as Democracy Dialogue, extend a very hearty word of thanks to the honorable delegates who, in spite of their busy schedule, they are here, and they have given a lot of inputs that we will take it further to work in the days to come. Their the input that they have given very good, and the interventions, the work that we can do in the future to come will these inputs will be very helpful for us. So I must mention my deep sense of gratitude for our distinguished speakers, Professor Amullah Khan, Professor Revati Garu, Advocate Gagandeep Kaur, then Sandeep Kareji, as well as I'd also like to thank our discussants, Siraj Irani and Thaneshwar ji, as well as Deepika. And I also thank Mr. Zia, Assistant Professor, Maulana Azad University, for giving an introduction as well as context setting. And impeccable moderation about how this has to go on, as well as I thank all the staff and all the audience for their patient listening. Once again, I thank all of you for your cordial cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Please do join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the next episode of this webinar series. The webinar series will be focusing on issues of women workers in the new arenas. So welcome all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you so much, Smita. Thank you,
Thank
everyone
you.
here.